Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Is that you?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Budget Contract Committee meeting. It is Wednesday, March 22nd at 5:30. We're coming to you from Pinole Valley High School. Dr. Hurst, may we please have roll call?
Yes, ma'am. President Gonzalez Hoy,
Good evening, President.
Trustee Clerk Smith Folds,
Good evening, everyone present.
myself, Ms. Kitchens here.
Present.
Sorry.
All right, and then if we could have, thank you everyone for being here. If we could have the land acknowledgement, President Gonzalez Hoy.
Of course, we recognize that we are presently on the lands of the Chichenyo, Muwekma, Karkin, Ohlone peoples, and acknowledge them as the first inhabitants of the land we currently occupy.
Thank you so very much. And we're gonna take a minute to have everyone introduce themselves. We heard from President Gonzalez Hoy. If you want to introduce yourself again, it'd be great.
Of course, and then we have Mr. Ryan, who's on the Zoom. So he needs to be contacted.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Good evening, everybody, President of the board. I'm actually not, usually in the committee, so I'm just here to do some prep work with you all for today, but moving forward, it'll be just Clerk Smith Folds representing the board.
Thank you so very much. Dr. Hurst, would you like to introduce yourself?
yes, my name is Superintendent Chris Hurst. It's a pleasure to be here. Of course, as you all know, I've been here for almost 2 years now. We're working really hard on a very inspiring vision and mission. I think that's part of our conversation this evening is really looking at contracts that really align to our mission and vision. So happy to be here.
Thank you so very much. We're gonna do individuals in the room first, and then we will do those on Zoom. Miss Mary, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Mary Kitchen. I am representing IFPTE Local 21 SSA chapter. I'm the vice president. I also work in business services.
Thank you so very much. Mr. Ryan, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Ken Ryan. I'm president of the Adult School Teachers Union.
Thank you so very much. Dr. McIntyre, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Robert McIntyre. I'm the Associate Superintendent of Business, and I'm super excited to see some of my team in the room.
Ms. Sanders, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Liz Sanders. I'm the Director of Communications and I'll be presenting.
Very good. Thank you very much. We have one more person coming in. Just give us 1 second. No, that's okay. You can sit right there by Ms. Kitchen if you would like to. And would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Shanae Teamsters, Union Representative for the classified staff.
Thank you so very much. And I am Jamila Smith Folds. I'm the clerk of the board and one of the co-leaders of this committee. alongside with her. Okay, great. So now there's public comment. Is there anyone for the public who would like to have a 2-minute public comment? If so, please raise your hand. We have no one in-house except for committee members. Ms. Veronica, hi, thank you for being here also. We have Ms. Veronica here also. We have no one in-house from the public. So do we have any public comment online? If you would like, oh, great, here we go. We have a hand up. Oh, no, hand down. All right, let's see. Oh, hand up. Great. Ms. Veronica, do you want to call public comment or you want me to do it?
I can do it.
Okay, perfect. And you get 2 minutes.
First public comment is Gerardo Brown.
You're unmuted, sir. Go ahead and speak, Mr. Brown.
Can you hear me? Can everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. I was assigned to translate the meeting in Spanish and they were going to put me on a Spanish interpretation channel, but I don't know if someone can do that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown. Hold on 1 second.
Okay,
Do we have
thank you.
public comment? You're welcome. Any more public comment? No? Wait, we're moving right along. Okay, Mr. Brown, we're gonna get you settled in just 1 second.
Okay, thank you.
Can I keep going while we do Mr. Brown? Okay. All right, so if you look on your agenda, and everyone has an agenda in their folder. For those of you who are listening online, we're on agenda item number 2, which is purpose and outcomes of the committee. And I'm just gonna read through this. The purpose of the committee is to look at each department collaboratively with the union and community partners to find savings in the budget. The outcome would be a collaborative budget that reflects district priorities and fiscal responsibility and accountability. We need to know where we're trying to go so we can work backwards, right? So we're gonna throw out our magic number that we're gonna try to hit in this committee. Hold on to your pearls. The magic number that we're gonna try to hit is 24 million. So we're gonna try to find 24, is that correct, Dr. McIntyre? I need nod for me. Okay, good. We're gonna try to find 24 million to hit. That's our magic number. If we find over that, wonderful. But we need to find 24 so we can do what we all intend, which is to not impact students. That means not cutting people closest to students. So that's what we're looking for. It's not gonna be easy work, but I know that we can do it as a committee together, and we are really gonna work towards that goal. Everyone, we are now moving to agenda item number 3, and it's vision and history of the committee. This work has been done before, and we want to replicate that. They found savings before working together as a team, and President Gonzalez-Hoy was an integral part of that last time. So I'm so happy that he's here and he can lead us in this work and help us and guide us. So President Gonzalez-Hoy, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Chair Smith-Foltz. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for being here. I think that this work is critical. I think I speak for the full board in saying that you all have a lot of work to do in the next 6 months, which is really the timeline that we're hoping we'll be able to fulfill our goal here today or throughout the next 6 months. As Chair Smith-Foltz mentioned, we have done this before, right? We were in a crisis in that moment, as many of you probably remember. I look at Mary, you were here, right? And in which we had to make a lot of cuts. At that time, we had, a very large deficit that we had to fix overnight. Thankfully, I think that we're doing this work ahead of time, right? We're looking at a problem for next year, right? But at that time, we were looking at a problem that was that in that moment happening, right? And we had to make the turnaround fairly quickly. We did it in 2 to 3 months in that time. So what happened is that we got all of our unions together who were the most affected because, the only way to fix the deficit at that time was to cut people, which is the largest expense in our budget. And the district and the unions decided, let's form this committee to see if we can find savings in everything else that we spend. As a caveat, I do want to say, at that point, we were trying to find more savings than what we're trying to find today. At that time, it was 35 million what we're trying to find, and the bucket of money was smaller. So I'm feeling hopeful that through the work that you're all doing this time around, we're actually going to be able to achieve it. But I do want to say that at that time, we only found 10 million and change to cut. So we did not fulfill our overall goal at that time, which was to fulfill fill the whole deficit. So I say that because my hope is that everybody in this committee will spend the next 6 months finding the 24 million. But we also know that and I think that the board knows that every dollar that's currently being spent is being spent for a reason, right? Filling a gap in our system, supporting students in some way, right? So these conversations are not easy, which is why we didn't just cut every dollar last time, right? Because through these conversations, we realized that there were some things that were essential. But I think that we always have to frame ourselves, and Clerk Smith-Foltz is going to talk about this in a little bit. on our goal, which is that we're trying to save the biggest and the best thing we can give our students, which is teachers, classified staff, administrators, right, that are directly supporting our students. Everything else that we're doing in our budget is very important, but it is, in my view, not as critical as providing them with direct support, right? Obviously, as you all go through the contracts, you will see some of the contracts are direct support, right? And some things you're not gonna be able to cut, right? Even if we try to squeeze it, because it is essential, right? And we have a lot of need. So we wanted to provide that history. I wanted to just wish you all good luck with this work, and to push each other, right? And push us, because we all have priorities. I did want to give you all an example of why this work is important. We all went through what we went through last week, where we had to possibly cut people because, we were overstaffed. But at least that was the perspective. Dr. Hurst said, we have this pot of money put aside for equity and for vision and for mission, which is very important, but it's not more important than our scouts, right? And he said, we're gonna put that aside, we're gonna use that money to save our scouts, right? And we're gonna continue to fight to find that money. And I think that was very important, because that is a good example of the work that I think that you'll have to do in the next 6 months, right? Because there are positions that are more important than something else, right? So I want to commend Dr. Hurst, because he already started this work for us, right? And with the support of our Teamsters, right? Labor union, right? So I think that's all I wanted to say. Anything else that maybe that I forgot?
I think that's it. I think that, does anyone have a question, comment? This is very, we're gonna have to have hard conversations in a soft way. So this is conversational. This is not, I have a takeover spirit, but this is not just me sitting here. This is all of us. So if anyone has anything to say, just, pop your hand up or catch my attention, and then we're gonna talk about norms in a minute, but we can really go into that. I do want to, well, let me tap that out. Oh, see. So we will have our structure and process of the committee. And so Dr. Hurst, if you could go over a little bit of structure and process of the committee. Those of you online, Mr. Ryan, make sure that you just raise your hand or unmute yourself. Okay, I think you have the ability to unmute yourself. Okay, so we are on item number 4. Structure and process of the committee.
Thank
Sir?
you so much, Ms. Clerk. I would like to just first start off with the norms. And we know we've all been in meetings before, and we've all have talked about and collaborated around what are the norms going to be for the meeting. So this is opportunity for us to all participate, but I can throw out some norms that are typical in meetings. So one of the norms is first recognize to speak. So just as in any meeting, if you have something to say, we want you to say that. Raise your hand. As Trustee Clerk Smith-Folds said, it is casual. So just let us know. We'll acknowledge you. The clerk will acknowledge you, and then we'll recognize you that you have the floor. And then also the second norm is assume good intent as we are speaking, that everyone is coming from a really good place. And it is about our kids as well. And then also understanding that these are tough conversations, we just want to make sure that we put forth to speak positively about everything that's going on. And then the other norm that I thought about is listening carefully and not interrupting as people are speaking. So those are 4 I would like to start off with, and I want to yield the floor for any of you that may have a norm, and then I can capture that norm. And if you're on Zoom, if you could just raise your hand, and we can recognize you and take your norm as well. So a few minutes for this.
Does anybody have anything else that they want to make sure is one of our committee norms? Mine is take a break when you need a break. If you need a break, take a break. So if you want it to just be an individual break, take a break. If you feel the pulse of the room, or we probably need a break, just let's all take a break. And then we can regather. So that's one of my big ones. Take a break if you need a break.
Yes, ma'am, I captured that. Anyone else?
Can I ask the one?
Absolutely.
Ask questions to seek understanding.
Ask questions to seek understanding. I like that. Anybody else? Are those good?
So I added, take a break when needed and ask questions to seek understanding. Thank you so much, everyone. I want to talk a little bit about just the structure. In meeting with president and also the clerk, we talked about having monthly meetings and it would go by department. We're starting off this month with our communications department, led by Liz Sanders. Then the next opportunity for the next month will be Tracy Logan, who's in our IT department. After that, we'll have our maintenance and operations department headed by Louis Freeze. After that, we'll have Sonia Neely Johnson heading up our SPED department. Afterwards, we'll have the bigger department. So we'll have Dr. Greenwood, our HR department, Dr. McIntyre, our business department, and then our biggest department is Larisha Huffman, our ed services department. I'll leave it to the president and the clerk to discuss when there'll be a pause. You know, typically no one is available in July, so I'm not sure if we want to pause in July and then pick back up. So just something to consider, sir. In talking also with the president and the clerk, there is a goal here, as we said, there's $24 million that we have to really be serious about and consider potential cuts. And there's going to be 3 buckets that we're looking at. As we're looking at these contracts, we're going to have Ms. Sanders present first. There'll be an opportunity for clarifying questions, so you can ask her any question. And then really the big buckets is we have to make a decision whether or not that contract is going to stay as is. So keep the contract in its current state. And then the second bucket is we have to reach a unanimous decision on whether that's going to be cut. So that's the second bucket. Are we going to cut that contract? And then the third bucket is, you know, we're going around and there may not be a unanimous decision. Maybe some of us want it cut, maybe some of us don't want it cut. So that's a third bucket. That third bucket will go back to the board for a conversation and then the decision to be made at the board. So again, the 3 buckets is keeping it as is, keeping the contract in its current state. The second bucket is reaching a unanimous decision here this evening to make that cut. That'll be the second bucket. The third bucket is we don't have quite a unanimous decision that will go to the board. Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's it.
Okay.
Anything to add, President Gonzalez? Okay.
Oh, sorry, if I could say one thing. I think that when it does come to the board, if there's not unanimous consent, the way that we're gonna agendize it is that for every contract, we'll specifically say, you know, there was not unanimous consent. These are the committee members who disagreed on cutting it. These are the committee members who agreed on cutting it. Just so that there's full context for the full board when, you know, we're making those decisions. And the committee will have an opportunity at that time to come and speak to the full board on your perspectives, right? So I also recommend everybody taking notes because 7 months from now, you might have forgotten what the discussion around communications, right? And why you disagree with the full committee, which I remember happened to me a couple of times. So I recommend, you know, everybody taking notes on every meeting.
And if you look in your little folder, there should be some line paper. There's also President Gonzalez Poy has some really good guiding questions for us to kind of think about. Yes, sir. Oh, absolutely. So we're gonna go back and Dr. Hurst, we're gonna have you go over that one more time so we can capture it in some of the notes,
Yes,
okay?
ma'am.
The part about the contracts and the buckets?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, okay.
So I'm just going to repeat because we do have someone that's taking notes. Just move a little slower. Do you need me to repeat the departments as well?
No, just the
Just the
buckets.
bucket. So the first bucket is deciding to keep the current contract that's being presented. The second bucket is
Wasn't in there.
a unanimous decision to cut the contract. The third bucket is we have not quite reached a unanimous decision. Those will go to the board for discussion, deliberation, decision. Second, okay.
So what, thank you. So what was just handed out is, and Mr. Ryan, I don't know how I'm gonna get this to you, but I will. President Gonzalez Hoy, because he has done this before and he is really intent on helping and guide us, which I'm so thankful for. Thank you so very much. He had some kind of questions that the committee can think about when we're listening to the contracts and when we're having this discussion, is some of the things that can help frame our work and what we're doing. So I'm just gonna go through the questions, so Mr. Ryan, you can hear them. Again, I will get this to you. Oh, if you can see it on the phone. I'll get this to you, but some of the questions are, number one, how is this contract a priority in supporting the vision and the mission of WCCUSD? Great question. Number two, is this contract absolutely essential for the support of students, staff, and families? Number three, is this something that could be done in-house? And if yes, how could it be done in-house? Number four, could we get this service cheaper? Number five, how does this contract directly support schools succeed? Number six, is it as important to keep this contract as it is to saving positions next year? These are very good, transparent, frank questions that we're gonna have to answer. And it also holds us into a level of accountability, so we can say, this is why we kept it. It fell in, we asked these questions, it did help with student success and school success. And number seven, how much does the contract save? I think numbers, we're trying to get to a number, we need to know the numbers, right? So that's in here for now. Okay, we did structure process. Ms. Sanders, before you get started, I would like us to take a break so we can kind of gather ourselves and know where we're going, because this presentation is going to be about 30 minutes. So everyone, we're going to take about a 10-minute break. Everyone in Zoom land, we're going to take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll be back with item number 5, which is the Communications Department contract. The committee will reviewing the contract.
¿Qué va a repasar el contrato?
Hold on, Mr. Brown.
Oh, sorry.
Everybody can hear you. Okay, now you can go for it. Go for it, Fran. So we're gonna have about a 30-minute presentation, then we're gonna have our conversation and kind of look at our questions or see how we're gonna kind of attack this. This is our trial. This is our first meeting, so everyone be gentle with each other and we'll just see how it works, okay? And then we have our next steps and then we can adjourn. I am always about giving people back their time. If we are efficient and we work early enough, great. We can end when we end. We do not have to go all the way to 7:30. But at the next steps, we do need to think about, ladies and gentlemen, what days we're gonna meet, the time, if it works for everybody, how often we're gonna meet. We may have to meet more than once.
Menudo no vamos a ver.
And then Dr. Hurst did already told us about the department, so we'll go back over that.
I do have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we reviewing contracts of all dollar amounts, or is there a lower limit that we're not looking at?
That's a great question. I think I know the answer to that. We are reviewing right now 5,000 and above. We can lower that or raise that to our pleasure. So that's something that we can absolutely talk about and figure out if we want to go to 2,500 or if we want to go to, 10,000 and above. What are we looking for?
Okay.
Okay. Keeping in mind our magic number.
Right.
And keeping in mind that everything impacts something else. So everything impacts something else. So it is now 5:56. I'm gonna assume that it's 6 o'clock. So we'll be back at 6:10.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, great. I don't know how to pause us. Are we still live? Still on. Hold on a minute. Okay, let me start again. Can you hear us now? Somebody throw a thumbs up in the air or not? We'll just assume you can hear us.
Nope.
Oh, wait. Oh, Mr.
Oh,
McIntyre.
okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. McIntyre. Okay, thank you for that 10-minute break. We are ready to get started with our first department, and that is our communications department. And here from communications is its director, Ms. Sanders. Ms. Sanders, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'd like to have screen sharing. I'll go ahead and start the presentation. Thank you. And do we have a copy of the handout available for the committee members who are on Zoom? Okay, great.
Not on Zoom.
Not on, Zoom. Okay. So, Mr. Ryan, if you can look at your screen, what you're seeing is what we're looking at for the most part.
There's the details with the numbers and everything that's in the handout. So if he doesn't have that, that won't be in the presentation.
Okay, so that, Mr. Ryan, that won't be in the presentation. But can we get it to Mr. Ryan?
They do, we're gonna have access to make a copy.
I can, if you give me a moment's grace, I'm happy to go and download a copy really quickly and email it to Mr. Ryan.
Okay, let's do that. Mr. Ryan, we're gonna email you a copy of this presentation that we're looking at, so you'll have the same numbers that we have.
Dr. McIntyre, I had a suggestion. If you want to drop the link, someone can see it, they can also see it.
I'll go ahead with it.
And while we're waiting for Ms. Sanders, I just want to go over, committee, are we in agreement that we won't meet in June or July? Are we all okay not meeting in July? Okay, okay. So we're not gonna meet in July. So what we have, April is IT, May is maintenance and operation, June is sped, we're skipping July. August is HR, September is business, October ed services. And I'll go over that one more time so everyone at home. Ms. Sanders, you let us know when you're ready. April is IT, May, maintenance and operations, June, sped, skipping July, August, Dr. Greenwood and HR, September, business services, and October, ed services. We're going from our smallest to our largest department. So that's the reason why we're doing it. Our hope is by the time we get to those larger departments, we have this running, right? And so we're able to really dig down deep.
One technical.
And May was again, what, I'm sorry.
May is maintenance and
Okay,
operations.
okay. Thank you.
Ms. Sanders, take your time. You let us know, but what we can do is we're just gonna skip and, oh, you're good?
We're good.
Oh, yay.
Thank you.
So Mr. Ryan now has access to it?
Yep, Mr. Ryan and Dr. McIntyre, this should be in your inbox. And then have I worked this out? Okay, so everyone here in the room can see this on the screen and folks in Zoom land can see my shared screen still. Did we lose this?
Yeah.
In Zoom land, we don't
We
have it.
lost the shared
Okay.
screen.
And Mr. Ryan, can you come off mute and let me know that you got the material?
Got it. Thank you.
But I can't hear you.
Oh.
Oh,
No. Oh, is it the aisle, the reason we can't hear him? Okay.
The owl is
Yeah.
on.
can you hear
Can
me?
you hear us?
I can hear you, but you can't hear me.
Dr. McIntyre, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. I can hear Mr. Ryan as well.
Do you hear me?
I've got it.
Uh-oh.
Let's see.
So if someone out there, Mr. Ryan, if you can drop something in the chat and let us know what's going on, because we can't hear you. And I don't know if you can drop it.
The owl.
I can hear you.
I can hear Mr. Ryan as well.
We are totally having technical difficulties right now. Thanks for.
Sorry, everyone. Thank you for your grace and patience. We are trying to figure it out.
Mr. Ryan, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
He
He
can't.
said he
Okay.
Can you say something so we can see?
Yeah, I don't know why mine's not working,
So we can't hear him.
but Dr. McIntyre, you can hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you just fine.
Oh, Ms. Jenkins has her hand up, her hand raised. Hold on, Ms. Jenkins. I don't know if we can call on you yet. Let's see what's happening.
How about now? Can you hear?
Oh,
Yep.
yes, we
Yeah.
can hear
Yeah,
you.
we got you. Yep.
Great.
Okay. And now, Dr. McIntyre, can you hear me still?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I tried another microphone.
Okay, Ms. Jenkins put her hand down. Okay. And Mr. Ryan, did you get the material?
Yes, I did. I got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then I'm gonna take Ms. Jenkins just because I want to make sure that we don't get 30 minutes into it and then.
Yep, and I think I'm just disconnecting from there. I think that's what was causing the technical difficulties, and we should be good to go.
Okay,
It'll just mean that in person, we're looking at the presentation on our laptop.
okay. All right, perfect. Ms. Veronica, can we call Ms. Jenkins to make sure we get her question or comment in?
Give me to give her permission to talk.
Yeah, I just wanna, because I don't want to go 30 minutes into it and then not know if we can help Ms. Jenkins with something.
Ms. Jenkins, go ahead and unmute.
Yes, hi. I wasn't sure whether I'm supposed to be able to be on video like Mr. Ryan or whether I'm where I'm supposed to be. That's all. That's my only question.
Okay, thank you.
Could someone answer it, please?
Yes, I just promoted you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
And Ms. Jenkins, let me go ahead and forward you the handout that I just sent to Mr. Ryan and Dr. McIntyre.
Met with her in Canton this morning.
Ms. Jenkins is from SSA. Okay.
Are you representing SSA or?
Lime, yeah, as far as I know. Kim asked me to join us for that. Huh?
All right,
Yeah, I know.
Ms. Sanders, you're good to go?
I'm good to go.
All right, Ms. Jenkins, did you get the materials?
Yes, I have the materials and I've
Okay.
been on since the beginning. I just couldn't understand why I wasn't able to join by Zoom. So, sorry.
That's okay. We are all working this out together. Okay, so Ms. Sanders, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm truly excited to be here with all of you today. Sometimes the work of communications is work that really happens in the background, but it impacts every single one of us every day. And we know that this is a high priority goal for our district, is to improve how we communicate. So I want to really hold the function of these contracts in context. What you should have in your hands is something that starts with a page that looks exactly like this Venn diagram, but then goes into detail about each of the contracts included. I'm gonna leave this Venn diagram up on the screen while we're all able to peruse and look through the details included about each contract. What you'll find in here, it includes all of the contracts above $5,000 for both the 4,000 and the 5,000s for communications. And in addition, beyond that, we've included some contracts that are part of the core function of the communications department. Even though they might be funded by a different department, they are part of our daily work. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that our department is speaking to those. There are also a few contracts and services that are under $5,000 that have been included for context. It's really important to us to make sure that the way our department is structured and funded is people first. And so there are some contracts that are important here just for context about all of the tools and services that we use as the core functions of our work. So you'll see here is a Venn diagram that's a little bit more clear about the color coding on the screen compared to how it is in front of you. So on your screen, you can see the left circle that's pink are tools that we use to collect insights. communicating is about listening just as much as it is about talking. And so there are tools that we use to collect insight, and then the tools in the blue circle are tools that we use for communicating information out. The services and contracts that are in the center of that Venn diagram really represent the core functions and work of our department, and they are tools that are used by our employees every single day. And that goes beyond just the employees who are within the communications department. That's scouts, that's office managers, that's teachers, that's site administrators. So as we're talking about these contracts really as tools and how they function, we want to talk about everyone whose work is supported by those contracts and facilitated by those contracts. You can see here on the outer two rings here, we have Meltwater and Nickel Strategies that we consider contracts that support us to collect insight, but are not necessarily contracts and services that we use to share information back out. There's a possibility that that could change for Meltwater, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then on the right side there, where you see Canva, Motor Vehicle Network, Facebook ads, Lamar, Mark Lampkin, those are contracts that we use to communicate information out, but they're not necessarily platforms that drive our analytics. So they're not necessarily the tools that we're using for listening, right? If you turn the page in your packet or change the page for those of you who are looking at the PDF copy, the first section that we're going to talk about is just that pink side on the left side, Meltwater and Nickel Strategies. So those are contracts that are used in order to really do good listening, deep listening, and have strong use of analytics and strategy. It is really important to me, like I said, to have people first funding in our department and really focus our funding and our services on what touches folks' daily work. So you'll see efforts to reduce these contracts significantly. So our Nickel Strategies contract this year was more than 75% less than what it was the year before. That is a professional development contractor that supports myself and supports our communications team. When I first came on, we used Nickel Strategies to have me do all of the modules that my team had done last year, so that my team and I could have a shared knowledge base. And then they also did a comprehensive analysis of all of our owned media. By owned media, we mean our website, we mean social media. And they did some initial consultation on big picture goals and strategy. In terms of our fiscal forecast for that, it's possible that there could be a continued cost for this, but I really have worked to try to reduce any spending in our department that feels like it isn't supporting the daily tools and operations of our team. And I've also tried to reduce anything that could possibly be duplicative. So this isn't necessarily something that we anticipate as a continued cost. And we have made an effort to make this have a minimal impact on our budget for this year. In terms of Meltwater, Meltwater is a media monitoring platform. And it's typically the base rate for Meltwater is $25,000. Anyone in my family can tell you that I don't believe buying things at full price. And I try to also not do that for us and to really have conversations with our vendors about our context as a district and about what pricing looks like for us that makes the most sense for us. We do have a need for a media monitoring platform. And the reason for that is, again, that idea of listening. We really want to be able to make sure that we're aware of how things happening on the ground in our community impact coverage of our community. So what Meltwater does is it aggregates across social media and traditional media. And it's constantly pushing toward us and our team all coverage that's happening. And that's really important in our current media landscape to go beyond just Google alerts that might pull from traditional news outlets and really understand our media landscape and the way that our community experiences it, which is very aggregated across social media and traditional media. What Meltwater does is it uses artificial intelligence to conduct a consistent sentiment analysis. And so it's constantly reading everything about our district as we tell it to. And then it is conducting a sentiment analysis of what is positive, what is negative, what is neutral. And it helps us maintain a big picture sense of how individual stories impact our district and our community. Part of why that's valuable for West Contra Costa Unified in particular is when we looked at what has happened to our district's communication over time. And this really closely relates to goals that our team set at the beginning of this year and that we've been working toward. It's really easy for us as a district to get lost in the emergency management work of communications and to chase individual stories or fires that might happen that are negative. And it's useful for us to be able to see overall, what is our community responding to? What is our community talking about? And how do individual stories, if something happened on a school campus, or if there's a larger issue in our community, how is that actually shifting our media landscape in aggregate? It may be shifting it significantly, it may not be. And so those metrics are really useful for us as a team to set strategy and ground ourselves in strategy. And I'll talk a little bit further on about what we've been learning from this platform and how this helps us continue to have kind of a North Star as a team and to really have what our community wants to respond to as our North Star. Part of why this is a significantly reduced contract, and you'll see the base rate for Meltwater again is $25,000. We are currently at a rate of $6,650. And part of the reason for that is because West County has a very unique media landscape, and we were very direct with Meltwater about that. Most of the use cases that they were able to show us were from communities with very different media landscapes than what we have. Richmond has been a news desert technically since around 1977, when its independent journalism shut down effectively. And since then, we have had a media landscape where sometimes we have beat reporters from larger publications. A lot of times we have what would largely be considered blogs or much smaller kind of journalistic outfits as the folks who are covering us, and a lot of stuff travels through social media, which is again why just using traditional media monitoring is not effective for our community. So we knew we needed a situation, or we knew we needed a service like Meltwater, but we weren't able to see from the use cases that they were showing us prior to acquisition enough data that made us confident to say, we know this will be as supportive of us as we need it to be. We know this will be as customizable for us as we need it to be. So we essentially put forth a few requests of Meltwater and said, we need to know that this platform can do this. We need to know that when we run a report, we're going to see these folks who we know are talking about us. We need to know that our artificial intelligence will be able to be customizable enough and responsive to us enough that as we relabel sentiments of different articles, that sentiment analysis will be as responsive as they've said. And so they built that introductory pricing for us. And so we've been using that in order to essentially have a pilot this spring. That $6,650 gets us to through June 30th. And so that gives us the opportunity to see, is this as impactful for us as we hope it will be? And currently, we are having positive results. And again, I'll talk a little bit more in a little bit about the results that we're seeing and how useful it's been for our team. One thing that's not yet a part of our package, but if we are able to expand this contract, could be incredibly useful, would be a media distribution database. There's a lot of turnover in our local media outlets. We've actually gone through our media distribution database by hand as a team multiple times since I came on 6 months ago. And still, every time we send out a press release, we have at least 30 bounce backs because of the turnover of individual reporters from our local news outlets. And when we have that significant number of bounce backs, sometimes the actual bites on our news stories get lost in the shuffle because you just see mailer demon, mailer demon, mailer demon over and over. And an individual reporter might get lost in that. We work really hard to make sure that that doesn't happen, but there's a significant amount of work that our employees are working to do by hand. That if we were able to slightly expand this contract, again, after seeing that their database truly includes everyone we think it needs to include for our community, it could be a big value add for our team. So that's just the analytics and strategy piece. Clerk Smith-Folds, would you like me to keep going or pause for questions after each section?
What do you guys think? Pause for questions after each section?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do that. So thank you for presenting Nickel Strategies and Meltwater. Do we have any questions about these two contracts specifically? Okay, go ahead.
So on Meltwater, you said that if you increase it up to 25K, it would be able to provide additional services. I didn't really capture what those additional services were.
Great question. And I do want to clarify, we would need to talk to them to figure out if the increase would have to be up to $25,000. When we first started talking through that contract, they were very clear that $25,000 was a floor. And I had to make it very clear that that was far above our ceiling. And that's how we were able to get to the 6,650 and to the specific services that were most essential to us and that we needed to test. So I don't know that it would have to shoot all the way back up to 25,000. There's a possibility that they might push that, but again, they've been really supportive in the conversation since we signed on. So the services that are not yet included in our package, the most important one for our team would be media distribution. So right now we're using this just for analytics and strategy. We're not using it for communicating out. That doesn't have to be the case for Meltwater. Meltwater actually is meant to be a platform for media relations as well. So currently the way that we create and produce our press releases and our media advisories is we create them in Google Docs. We download them as PDFs. We have a Google Sheet that has a big, long list of all the reporters whose contact information we can find and verify. As those folks change, we go in and we take out the people who left the publication, left P3D, whatever it might be. We try to ask around, do texting, do phone calls to figure out who the new folks are. We go in, we put in their contact information. If an editor calls us and says, hey, someone over at this publication said they're getting your stuff and I'm not, we add them. Then we pull that into a big email list, drop that into a Gmail. We're very kind of bare bones about our media distribution right now. And then we'll attach a PDF and a text copy from Google Docs of the press release and we'll send it out that way. And every single time we get a whole bunch of bounce backs. So what Meltwater does is they essentially do that curation of all the media contacts for us. And they maintain a giant database as folks leave, they know, as folks come in, they know. And that would support our team to be able to build out the press releases and the media advisory, go into their database and hit go. We were really clear with them again that we have a unique media landscape and we knew we had an immediate need for media monitoring. So we figured if we started with just a contract for media monitoring, we'd be able to see their ability to connect with our local kind of more mom and pop type publications. And if we could really see that those folks were actually there, then we could start thinking about, well, this might be something that would really be useful for us to, use to distribute a press release. But we know and value our relationships with our local journalists. So we knew that if we switched to a big aggregate platform for media release distribution, and that cut out all of our local community connections who really run these local publications, that would be a big problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And just to answer your question more fully, the other feature that currently is part of a pilot for us that would not continue after June 30th if we don't continue or expand our contract is newsletter reporting. So you're about to see a change in format in the News of the Week and the Friday Memo, and that's because we will be starting to produce the News of the Week for the Friday Memo in Meltwater. And so that is a value add in terms of a tool for our team. That is something that we've been building by hand from Google Alerts and from going in and copying and pasting from individual articles, and it's pretty time consuming for our team. So this would allow us to go in and look at our daily reports. We get daily reports from Meltwater that are really useful, literally tag articles that need to go in News of the Week. And at the end of the week, have recurring reports that are just set up and go out and we can just drop them in the weekly memo. So our team would love that if we're able to have it. But again, we are scrappy and we try to have contracts that are as low cost as we can.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I just needed clarification on Nickel's strategy.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. No, it was Meltwater. My apologies. the 6,650 that you're currently spending, that, that's what the contract is now.
That's what the contract is. now.
Okay, but if you were to expand it
Right.
with those additional features, it can reach the 25,000 floor, but they're not, you're already signed on for the 25,000, but they just haven't held you to? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that. Okay. That's all. I just needed to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Any other questions? Take a minute to look on Zoom. Okay, are we ready to move on? Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. Thank you so much, Ms. Sanders. We're ready to move on.
All right, so we will look at the center of that Venn diagram. That's what we think of as our core suite of communications tools. They both gather insight and communicate information, so we get a lot of great analytics from these tools. And we also use them to communicate out. I will say that, I know that a lot of this work in communication is really technical. Please pause me as needed, ask questions as needed. At the top there, you'll see Parent Square. That is our mass communications system. It's funded out of the LCAP. And I just want to talk about a few improvements from Blackboard Connect, which was our past platform, to highlight what some of the features of Parent Square are. The biggest win for us with Parent Square is increased multilingual support. This automatically translates content for nearly all home languages in WCCUSD. It does that for messages that we push out, and it also does that for two-way communication with families. So it's a big deal for our teachers who want to communicate directly with parents who might speak a different language than they do. The only home language in WCCUSD that is not currently supported by Parent Square is Tigrinya, which is a language of our Ethiopian community. We do want to make sure that we have support for all languages. This is a fairly small population. The number that it's showing us in Parent Square in terms of the number of families impacted is between 11 and 14, depending on where you look. And overall, everyone else is receiving communication in their home language. Parent Square also supports rich content beyond what Blackboard Connect supported. So this means that we can integrate newsletters into Parent Square and also even build them directly into Parent Square. We can request volunteers and other donations, post photo albums, do RSVPs for events. There's a lot that we can do in Parent Square. And I think we've just dipped our toes in the water so far, and it's something that has a lot of exciting possibilities for our district. The Parent Square app also brings together all posts from sites and departments into one feed for families. So it's a great way for families to have a clear sense that when they're getting communication from West Contra Costa Unified, whether that's communication from food services, whether that's communication from their school site, that we as a whole district are working to provide integrated services for their families, and the communication they receive integrates that information in a reflective way. Any questions about Parent Square? Yeah.
So I'm just utilizing the sheet here. So I understand the need, already supporting of the vision and mission. I want to go to question number 4. Could we get this service cheaper? Are there other apps or softwares that form the same capability, but can be less cost effective?
That's a great question, and certainly something that we could look into. I will say one of the things that we want to be thoughtful about is what features we do and don't have for platforms that are cheaper.
Okay.
And so when we compare this to Blackboard Connect, which I believe was a little bit cheaper, that was not communicating in all languages to all of our families. And so when we think about our obligation to provide services for all families, I think that's something that really drove the decision to shift over to.
And do you know how long the district's been utilizing Parent Square?
So we started using Parent Square in July.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
When you talked about the language that we're not using, you said 11 to 14. Is that percent or family?
Families,
So there's 11 to 14 families
correct.
that have an Ethiopian dialect that it doesn't translate.
Correct,
Okay.
and so they end up receiving their communication in English.
Mm.
That's the default language.
What has been some of the feedback from Parent Square? I use Parent Square.
Yeah.
So I get Parent Square from my child's elementary school and my two older girls' high school.
Mhm.
For me, the Parent Square that I'm getting, my principals are very on it.
Yeah.
They are using Parent Square. I'm getting a lot of information from Parent Square. Not every school has that, right? So not every experience is, not every person is getting that same experience,
Right.
right?
Right,
So Parent Square is very heavy on what is the person who's loading it up doing,
right.
right? So you could have, some people are still using our old,
Not anymore.
so everybody's on Parent Square.
Everybody.
Everybody's using Parent Square. Okay,
Everybody, talk to the last person, it's everybody, everybody.
everybody's on it. Okay, so what is some of the feedback that you've had from Parent Square? I know, for example, one of it was that people's aunties and uncles were getting the Parent Square messages, right? Everybody, like the cousin was getting it, whoever was on that emergency card was getting a Parent Square message.
Mhm.
That bug's probably fixed now, but what are some of the feedback that you're getting about Parent Square?
Yeah, I'll talk about just a couple of the big picture overall points of feedback, and then I actually have some screenshots from our Parent Square dashboard that we're going through a deeper dive when we've gone through the contracts, if you don't mind. So I think one of the big pieces of positive feedback that we've gotten is the ability to go in and edit the Spanish translation. That's a big deal. There are a lot of terms and words that don't always auto translate in a way that is correct or makes sense for our communities. And so, something that we're also working to do is build better templates within the communications department so that things like editing the Spanish translation don't necessarily have to be done, every time by someone wondering, oh, what's that word that we use for lockdown, right? That we have more kind of templates and glossaries and things like that to support some of that translation work that needs to be done. That's a big win. I would say another piece of feedback that we've gotten has been around what you mentioned about who's contacted and how. I think anytime there's a new system, there's a sense that our data lives in that system and is edited in that system. That's not the case. So Parent Square integrates directly with PowerSchool. It syncs every single night. And so we get a lot of phone calls and emails and communication still about, can I edit my contact information in Parent Square? We will be needing to do that for staff, actually, and I'm happy to talk about that a little bit more. For families, though, we really want to make sure that all of the correct contact information is living in PowerSchool. And so we want to make sure that sites and families are always editing their contact information in PowerSchool. We don't want to end up with two data sets living two places, and it does sync every single night. So we are still norming some of those kind of troubleshooting scenarios there and making sure that folks know, hey, you got this in the, to the wrong number, or you're not receiving it, call your school site.
And then I have another question. How are we able to tell how many people are engaged in Parent Square? Like if I click on the message sent from my child's high school principal, does that then log in and say, okay, one person clicked on it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have some data to say how many people are engaged. Are you gonna go over that or, okay,
Yep.
perfect,
And
I'll wait.
That's part of why this is like right in the center there for collecting insight and communicating information.
Okay,
This is one of our programs that's really rich in terms of analytics. So it's really useful, and I think that especially if we start having conversations across site about some of the data we're seeing, we'll learn even more.
okay. Anyone else have a question about Parent Square or is it Hootsuite?
And Hootsuite, I haven't talked about
We haven't
yet.
done
Okay, Parent Square.
So Parent Square comes out of the LCAP funding. That's what I'm just trying to confirm. Okay.
But I wanted to make sure to talk about it at this time because it's a core tool.
I do have a question about data usage. I was wondering if you could share with us
Yeah.
how it's being used district-wide. So I think that depending on how it's being used, it will tell me whether or not it's being effective, right? So
Right.
if at one point, one of our committee members just showed up, so I'm gonna go let him in, but maybe later in the presentation, if you don't mind sharing.
When we do that Parent Square deep dive, like absolutely talk about that. That'd be
Okay.
great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Crystal, would you like me to keep going or pause?
You know, we have another committee member coming in. Let's take a little, just a pause. And then, so we can all regulate back onto the same thing. We don't have to take a break necessarily, but we can just take a little bit of like casual side conversation. We're waiting for another committee member, ladies and gentlemen, we're waiting for another committee member to come in. And then we will get back to the presentation. We're gonna give them about 2 minutes so they can settle in. And then, Ms. Veronica, can we pass one of those folders down for Mr. Don? Thank you. Yeah, you get it. Get that out for me. Okay, Ms. Sanders, I think that you can continue on and we are. Is it Hootsuite?
It's sweet.
Okay,
Yep.
we are ready to talk about Hootsuite, everyone.
All right.
And wait, I told a big old lie, hold on a minute. Let's just give everybody a little understanding of how much we have left. I always like to look ahead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you want to show us some special stuff.
I do.
Okay, so we have about 8 contracts to go through.
Okay.
And then we will regather ourselves and then we'll look at those deep dives.
Okay.
Okay, we are ready for Hootsuite.
Awesome, we'll talk about Hootsuite. So Hootsuite is one of those, that like I said, is less than $5,000 per year. But it is a core tool of our department. And when we look at that core suite of tools in the center of the Venn diagram, parents for Hootsuite, Final Site and Blackboard, S'more, and actually even Canva off to the right. Those really are all tools that work together. So we wanted to make sure that we were mentioning some of the lower cost and scrappier tools that we use in context with some of the other tools that they integrate with and support. So Hootsuite is our social media publication and analytics. This connects to our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter, and our LinkedIn. And we use this to schedule and publish content across those platforms. So this is really great. It's a really useful tool for our team because it means that we can go ahead and let's say we're using one graphic and we have a core piece of text for the caption, but we know that across different platforms, it has to be modified a little bit. For example, in Facebook, you can include a direct hyperlink within a caption, and that's how someone might get to your landing page for your event or whatever it might be. Whereas in Instagram, we need to have that link in our bio. In Hootsuite, we can go ahead and put together one post with the graphic or the picture, with the text for the caption, and just slightly edit each platform. So it's really as simple as clicking over on the different tabs for each platform and just adjusting on Instagram, bio, on Facebook, we're going to put this direct link to the actual event page that we're going to. So it's really an efficiency tool for our team. And then it's also really, really powerful in terms of analytics. So I'll give an example that helps show how and why that's really powerful in terms of analytics. To clarify the annual cost that you're seeing there, Hootsuite is currently part of a PO that includes both Hootsuite and MailChimp. As I mentioned before, it is really important to me to have a department budget that is people first and reduces duplicative services. So one of the ones that we identified that was a redundant service was MailChimp. It's a newsletter platform. S'more is also a newsletter platform. So we're discontinuing MailChimp as of this month. There was a little bit of work that we had to do in order to discontinue that service without disrupting the work of other departments. We had departments that were actively using MailChimp and had newsletters and mailing lists built out in that. So that is something that we've been transitioning out, and as of this month, it will be gone. But in terms of showing what the annual cost is, That was a $1,200 annual PO. So when we think about the cost of Hootsuite only, that's a monthly cost of $75. So again, we're talking about a pretty scrappy tool there in terms of the fiscal impact that has a really high level of impact for our team and integrates with some of the other tools that we use. Any questions about that before I keep it moving?
Anyone have any questions about Hootsuite?
So, Hootsuite is where you actually build what you're going to send out. And then, Meltwater is going to assist you in sending it out if you upgrade.
No, so Hootsuite is what assists us with publishing social media. Meltwater is what would assist us with publishing to media relations.
Ah,
So,
okay.
so we
To
would
the
publish
media.
press releases and media advisories to Meltwater.
Okay.
Whereas we would always publish social media. Great question.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So I do have a question that probably takes us a little backwards.
Okay.
How many media releases do we give out on average?
A lot, maybe.
A lot?
I'm happy to quantify that for you and get back to you with it.
Okay.
I don't want to misquote.
That's okay.
My goal, I will say my personal goal for our department, is always one a week.
Okay, Okay.
And sometimes we go beyond that, sometimes it's less than that, and it depends on what's going on.
okay, and this is to outside media places.
Correct. So, a couple examples of when we've done that recently, we had the, Ever Buy and Borrow event at Highland for the financial literacy, and we had those business partners coming in. And we wanted media coverage. We sent out a media advisory about that, so that those knew to come. I'm trying to think of others that we've done. Sometimes we do press releases when we've gotten like our fiscal advisory letters from the county. We, have to make sure that we do our due diligence to get things like that out there. So that's kind of a more unfortunate example of when we might do a press release, but there's a mixture of reasons why we might do a press release or a media advisory.
Okay, thank you for that.
Absolutely.
We don't have to look at MonkeyChamp, right, MailChimp?
MailChimp, no,
Right.
we're phasing that out.
Yeah, MonkeyChamp's out. Okay.
That's their sequence with things.
Okay, so let us move on and, ladies and gentlemen, we have, just for a second, we have Mr. John from UTI has joined us. Thank you. We have Mr. De Leon from WCCAA has joined us. Thank you very much. So we are fully staffed. So thank you very much for you guys leaving one thing and coming to another. We really appreciate it. Dr. Hurst, we're gonna just catch everybody up real quick.
Yep.
Quick review, everyone. This is gonna be a quick thing. Welcome to the opening procedures. We have everybody here from our committees and our unions. Thank you so much. If you look at your agenda, it tells you the purpose of the committee. Our magic number that we're trying to hit is $24 million. So when we're looking through these contracts, we're trying to have a savings of $24 million. President Gonzalez Hoy is here because he's done this work before. He is helping guide us through it. The last time they did this work, they had to cut in the moment. We are trying to do it 6 months out. So we will make sure that we are giving it all of our due diligence, just like they did before, but we're giving ourselves that time space to really have these deep dive conversations. The structure and the process is, we have our norms, the norms that you all have in all of your meetings. Raise your hand to be recognized. We're having hard conversations, but we're doing it a soft way. We are able to make sure that we are having best intentions. If you need a break, take a break. We are also, what was the other one? Assume good intent, speak positively, listen carefully, and try not to interrupt. Take a break when you need one. Ask questions to seek understanding. That's one that we have on there. We also want to go over the next, in our part of our next steps. We talked about when the committees will have. So in April, we're doing IT. In May, we're doing maintenance and operations. In June, we're doing SPED. We are skipping July. We took that vote when you were not here. We decided we're not doing July. August, we're doing HR. September, we're doing business. And in October, we're doing ed services. We're going from smallest to largest. That's just the easiest way to do it. And then there's gonna be 3 buckets. So each one of these contracts are gonna fall into one of 3 buckets. And, gentlemen, I forgot to tell you that Mr. Ryan from Adult Ed is online. So we have everyone here. And Ms. Jenkins, sorry about that, Ms. Jenkins, and Ms. Jenkins is here. So we're gonna take each one of these contracts, and we're gonna put them in one of 3 buckets. Here's first bucket. The first bucket is we keep it and we forward the contract as is. We keep the contract, it goes forward as it is. The second bucket is unanimously, all of us together say, you know what? This contract needs to be cut, or we can do it in-house, or there's something different that we can do with this contract. That's a unanimous vote. If we do not come to a conclusion of where this contract goes, and it's not a unanimous vote, it goes into our third bucket, which goes to the board. So this bucket is, we all had an opinion, we could not come together to consensus, so this contract goes to the board. When it goes to the board, it's then discussed at the board level. Everyone's welcome to come in, say their point of view, what they found to be why it shouldn't go forward or it should go forward, and then it comes to a board decision. That's where we are. We are 24 million. That's our magic number again. I want to make sure we keep saying that. 24 million is where we are. Gentlemen, you have in front of you a piece of paper. This piece of paper, and if you don't have it, I will give it to you, Mr. De Leon. I don't think you have one. This piece of paper is some of the guiding questions that we have. You want to give them that whole stat for me? I'll give you a couple contracts and then have them come down. The questions in front of us are some of the guiding questions that we have been using while we're having this conversation. It's for us to kind of talk about, and our experts in the room are also here to answer any of those questions or other questions that we have. We're stopping after about each page on the contract. You are all caught up. Thank you again very, very much. And Ms. Sanders, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And if it's all right, one thought I had is we could go through the rest of the contracts. I can show one case study that shows how all of the remaining ones fit together and interact together, which might help answer some of our questions. And then we could open it for broader questions other than stopping after each contract. Does that sound okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
So she's, instead of continuing with stopping after each one, she'll just finish the presentation, and then at that point, they'll take.
I have questions at the end.
If that works. So there are 2 case studies at the end. One shows how all of our marketing tools integrate together. The other one is a deeper dive into parent squares. What I can do is finish presenting all of the remaining contracts, most of which do relate to our marketing. Share the case study about marketing so that we can all hear how all the services fit together, giving them one example. Take questions just about all of those, and then do the deeper dive into parent squares.
Are you guys okay with that? We want to make sure we leave enough room to where we can have conversation about where to put the contracts in the bucket.
Right.
That's gonna take a little bit of a conversation, so.
Okay.
Let's say we need to at least give ourselves minimally 15 minutes to have that conversation. Are you guys in agreement with that? Minimally 15 minutes. So, Ms. Sanders, if you can talk super fast, that'd be great.
Yes, I will do my very best. So the next one is our content management system for our district and school site websites. And that is Final Site and Blackboard K-12. And the reason why I say Final Site and Blackboard K-12 is because historically it has been Blackboard K-12. That company was acquired by Final Site. And we were given until June 30th to figure out what our next transition would be as a district team. And so that was true of all Blackboard clients. We decided for a couple of reasons to go with the transition to Final Site. So I'll just briefly summarize those reasons. One was that they offered us a discounted rate to get onboarded. And so we felt that that would be a supportive and cost-effective opportunity to have a smooth transition. Another reason is because there are specific improvements in the Final Site content management system that our district was already in need of. In October of this year, we did an audit of our current school site websites and found that only 32% of our schools are actively using their official district school site websites. I have to be really frank, and we have to be really frank, that isn't acceptable. And that means that investment in a content management system isn't currently doing what it needs to do for our community. And so we had to take a hard look at why and figure out which improvements were necessary in terms of the product that we needed in order to have something that would have a higher rate of internal user acquisition. And what I mean by that is like literally more of our schools would use it. That really, I think the building agrees with me that we need some technical changes on the website. Yeah, interesting things happening with the lighting over here. So what some of those improvements are, one is custom searching. A frequent complaint that we've heard about our website is that when you go and use the Find It Fast search tool, a lot of times what comes up is a resource that is very old or out of date, or is not actually what someone is seeking out. And so by having a content management system that has custom searching, it means we will be able to go into the back end of the website and say, when someone asks for this resource, when someone asks for COVID guidance, when someone asks for graduation requirements, we want this specific page to be the one at the top, rather than relying on an algorithm at the back end of the website to choose what it thinks is the best page, when that may not actually be the correct page. So custom searching is something that we are really excited about and should make a daily lived experience difference for our staff and our students. We also will have the addition of Legalot. That's essentially the website version of the translation support that we have in Parent Square. It gives us the ability to edit the translated versions of the website rather than just rely on auto translation, which may not effectively or authentically translate the website into our family's home languages. Final Site also has improved interfaces for mobile sites. We know that a lot of folks are becoming mobile first web users, and that's something that we see in our data for our community, especially for our parents. And so the interface for this will support better mobile versions of our websites. The content management system for Blackboard kind of felt like the mobile sites were an afterthought. And so while you might build a page that would work just fine on desktop, then folks could get really easily frustrated finding what they needed on mobile. And that also is an equity issue. And I think it's really important that we name that. A lot of folks now have phones. Not everybody necessarily has a desktop or laptop computer. Final Site also has cleaner and more user-friendly navigation. And we were able to negotiate what's called a theme plus design solution, which means that we're not necessarily boxed into just a standard template with no revision or customization for our school community. We know we're a big complex district and we needed some amount of revision and customization on our theme. What Final Site actually did recommend for us as a district was a completely custom website because of how large and complex we are and how many school sites we have and the diversity of school sites that we have. The price that they quoted us for that gave us a serious amount of sticker shock. We didn't feel that we had the budget for it. We didn't think it was an appropriate use of district resources, given the financial situation of our district. So we chose not to go with that contract. And instead we chose just the Theme Plus, which essentially caps us at a certain number of design hours for our designer. So our design partner, as we shift into our new website, will have a certain number of hours that they can devote to the customization of our template, and then they will be capped. So what we will have to do as a district and as a team is to figure out what are the highest priority customizations for us for our website. And then we'll just have to know as a district that we're stopping there. And we're stopping there because something totally custom is not something we felt we could responsibly afford. I did want to provide a little historical context for our past costs. So you'll see in the 21-22 school year, the total cost to Blackboard was $102,000. And I think that's important to have in context as we're looking at the 5-year payment schedule for Final Site. We do have a one-time fee this year of $20,000 to support that transition. This is all funded out of the IT budget. That $20,000 is that customization that takes us from having just a drag and drop. I mean, it will all be drag and drop on the back end, but just a basic template and actually gets us to that Theme Plus design template. When we looked at the 3 options for the transition, it was really clear that they would not support our district website or our site websites to function. And when we think about that 32% of schools that have been actually using their school sites, we have to take that as feedback. that what has been in place for our school sites to use for their websites has not met their needs in some way. Otherwise, we do believe that they'd be using it. So that's why we want to make sure that we are doing good stakeholder engagement about this website transition. We'll be seeing some of that coming very soon. And making sure that what we transition to is really an authentic investment in what our school sites need and our community needs. I'm going to move on to S'more. S'more is a newsletter creation and distribution platform. Like I said before, one of our biggest challenges in terms of district-wide communications is supporting our internal users across job types who do communications work to be onboarded to platforms. S'more is a newsletter creation platform that is a lot easier to use than MailChimp and a lot easier to onboard to. We need to turn on the light.
We are, ladies and gentlemen, we are just getting the lights set back on. They are apparently on a timer of some sort, and we have been too still for too long, and they are not cutting back on. But, Mr. John, you're right, it is a really pretty view. So we're gonna get the lights cut back on. Ms. Sanders, we gotta keep going though.
Okay, keep going.
We have to look in the dark.
So the current cost is $999 for a year. Again, that's under $5,000, but the reason we're including it is because that current cost reflects only 10 user accounts. We started out at only 10 user accounts because we do know that we have an issue district-wide with folks using official district communications platforms, and we wanted to make sure that this really was a platform that folks would use and we could get folks onboarded to. We have actually already hit our goal this year of distributing all of those licenses and supporting folks to use them. People have been really excited by it. It is really getting used. So we can see that this is something that our folks like to use. It supports folks to communicate with their families. We would like to expand this contract to something that we can do district-wide, especially from an equity lens, not having a service that we choose as a district, but don't actually make available for all of our schools. So that is part of why I mentioned that and just put that in context.
And S'more has something different than the Parent Square.
So S'more integrates with Parent Square. So when you go into S'more, you can just build out a newsletter really quickly. Then you take the code from S'more, you drop it into Parent Square, and it sends your newsletter out. So you can build a newsletter in Parent Square, but you really have to have a baseline understanding of HTML code. And so when we're talking about supporting staff across our district to easily and quickly communicate out to families, it's probably not realistic. And we're not currently offering that level of support for folks, nor is that part of everyone's job to learn HTML code. So this is a much more user-friendly way for folks to be able to communicate with their families. The last one there is MailChimp in that section. We don't need to talk too much about it because we're phasing it out. It's like a fancier, nicer S'more, just to be really frank. It is a fancier, nicer S'more, but as we're, as we stated, we want to make sure that our folks are actually using the tools that we provide. And S'more is one that folks will use. So we want to yes and that and phase out MailChimp. So that's what we're doing.
And we probably don't have to talk about Canva because it's free.
We don't have to talk about Canva because it's free, but I do just want to shout out Canva because it's free. And again, it's really important to us to be smart and scrappy. And what Canva does for us is we can build out our brand kit in Canva. We have built out our brand kit in Canva. So that means that like the correct, what they're called text codes, like the exact specific colors for our district branding are built into Canva. They also provide free professional development for our folks to learn how to create content in Canva, our logos in Canva. We built all like cool brochures this year in Canva. So again, it's one of those great platforms that is free that our folks use, and it integrates with everything else we do. It integrates with more and all that. As we keep it moving, now we're getting into our marketing. So Motor Vehicle Network is our annual contract with the DMV for advertising. I know we've already gotten some questions. I've already gotten some questions during board meetings about why do we advertise at the DMV? And I think that's a really important and valid question. And I want to give you a really fair answer and take more hard questions as they come. We know that two of our big issues as a district are enrollment and staffing. those are also big fiscal levers for us as a district. We need to increase our enrollment and we need to do something about our staffing crisis. When we think about that in terms of marketing, that means we need to be able to reach folks who are outside our current community of parents and outside our current community of employees. When we are using our social media, when we're using our own media platforms like website, Parent Square, things like that, we're really operating in the universe of our current folks. We might get connected to new families and new employees through that network, and that's great. But if we really need to attend to a crisis, we also have to reach the broader community beyond that. And so the DMV is one of actually the lower cost ways that we have to do that. And so when we think about the cost for marketing, we want to think about the cost per impressions, or how our cost compares to our reach and engagement. So what we get for our dollars at the DMV is ads, billboards, and in-content logos on all 4 of the 49-inch flat screens at the El Cerrito DMV, and that is constant. Like, we literally can't turn it off. If we don't give them a new ad, they switch to one of our old ones. Right now, our default is if like we've gone past something that's for an event, like the job fair, and we haven't given them something new, they go back to the Mandarin School. If anyone has any ideas about what they'd rather we go back to, we are all ears. We try to produce content for them as quickly as we can, but we are essentially always advertising in the DMV. Given the foot traffic in the DMV, our cost per 1,000 impressions averages $3.82. That is less than half the cost of social media advertising. And it gets us to that broader universe of folks who may not already be part of our district community. So that's kind of our why there. I will say, if that's a contract that we want to debate, I will hear you and we can talk through the tough questions and think about that. It's $11,700. When we move on from that to Facebook ads, the cost of those varies. The way that that works is when a district department comes to communications and says, hey, we need an enrollment campaign, or we need a hiring campaign, or whatever it might be. We do a budget transfer. So they might have their marketing budget. We say to them, what's your budget for this campaign? We help design the ads. They'll do a budget transfer, and we will set up the ads in Facebook Ads Manager and help target the ad appropriately so that we think it will be most effective for their universe. The cost per 1,000 there averages between $7 and $8. So if those look really small, they look like less than $5,000, but when we compare that to the annual cost for the DMV and to the cost per impressions that we're getting, so really the bang for our buck in terms of marketing, the social media ads are about twice as expensive as advertising in the DMV is. The next one there called Lamar. You may recognize that logo if you've ever seen an AC Transit bus. That is the advertising company that advertises on the sides and on the backs of AC Transit buses. So when you saw last summer, we did a free school campaign on the back of AC Transit buses. That's a contract with Lamar. We're currently in negotiation with them for a campaign to support hiring advertising and also enrollment advertising. Their current rate that they're quoting us is between $7,000 and $15,000 per campaign. So again, that puts that DMV contract in some context. When we're talking about the DMV contract allows us to do multiple campaigns at one time consistently throughout the year, whereas the Lamar contract is something that we do on demand when a campaign comes up, and it's between $7,000 and $15,000 per campaign, depending on how many buses we're putting our ad on and for how many weeks. Our last contract here, actually second to last, sorry. And thank you all for hanging in there with me. It's Mark Lampkin Media. That is our live streaming of our high school graduation ceremonies. We will need to continue to fund that if we want to continue live streaming our high school graduations. Again, that's something I'm happy to have conversations about. It is funded through our operations funds for graduations, but it's a contract that goes through my department like the advertising ones do, and that we do negotiate. 15,000 is significantly below market rate. And so that does reduce the vendors that are available to us, and it does reduce what we get. So we are currently paying for a below market rate for that. And that's what I have to say about that. The last one there is Ernest Herrera. That is our radio station engineer for our district radio station, which is KECG. That's a $10,000 cost per year. That also is far below market rate. And so there's a possibility that that could increase in future years, and that's a legally required expense of operating a radio station. Keeps us in compliance with the FCC, among many other things we have to do to stay in compliance with the FCC, but that's one of them.
You hit it right on time, 7:15, great.
Yay.
Okay, so here's the thing that I want us to kind of know, we don't have, let's not rush ourselves. Okay, if we have to come back with this one at the next meeting and another one, okay. Let's not rush ourselves, let's have the deep conversations, let's make sure that we're trying to hit consensus. If we only get to 2 or 3 of them, it is what it is. But we will invite you back
Okay.
to the next one, because I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence so we can look everybody in the face and said, we really took a deep dive. So we still have 2 more things to do, which is our next steps and well, just adjournment. But let's try this. Let's go back to the very beginning and keep me kind of on task with this. So we go back to the very beginning of them. And the first one is nickel strategy. Oh, you know what? Totally forgot. You're absolutely right. Anybody have any questions from what we've heard? The last couple of presentations that we heard?
And do you have 2 minutes for that case study? Because it might help clarify. If you don't, it's okay.
You're so, you want to tell us that case study so bad. I understand. We'll see in 1 second. Give us 1 second. Because I know I was that student that was like, yo, I did the work. Let me show you. I get it. I want to see your case study, but just give me 1 second. All right, anybody? So President Gonzalez-Hoy, you have some questions? Let's go, and Ms. Kitchen, you have some questions. So let's get some questions out and then let's see how far we get, okay? Go ahead, President Gonzalez-Hoy.
Thank you, Kristen Cole. So I have 3 questions.
Yeah.
I'll start with the easy ones. For Facebook ads and Lamar, could you tell us how much the department spent on both of those contracts, both of those advertising firms?
Right.
Like Facebook ads, I don't know if I want to
So
call it advertising,
for-
but how much total this year?
For Facebook, how much total so far is 4,785.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. And for Lamar, we have not established a contract yet for this year. The most recent one was last year with the preschool campaign. That dollar amount, I don't know off the top of my head, but you have to look it up. But this year, we're currently negotiating with them.
But since it was only one campaign, probably somewhere between 7,000 and 15,000.
So it's, I would think, well, my understanding is that the rates they're quoting us this year are higher than last year. I don't know if that's due to inflation or why. So I would think it would be the lower end of that range from last year.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And my last question is around Final Site and Blackboard. Obviously, you heard the board really wants to update the website, right? And it's a constant complaint from a lot of people, but could the website maintenance be done in-house somehow?
It is
So it is in-house, so
all done in-house.
it's all done in-house. So this just provides the template and the tools for it to be maintained
Correct.
in-house.
These are the tools of our WCCUSD employees.
So let me switch my
Yes.
question.
Yeah.
Is there another tool that we could use that would be cheaper than Final Site?
I think we've seen how that's gone. My personal definition of a misuse of public funds is using public funds in a way where they don't provide the services to the people. And in my definition, that's what's happened with Blackboard. And so what we're looking at in terms of an annual cost for Final Site is less than it was for Blackboard. And we're getting the services that we need for our community. Does that help answer your question?
It does, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Did Final Site buy Blackboard?
yep.
So
They did.
Blackboard used to be a hot mess. The Final Site bought Blackboard. So how do we know Final Site is not gonna be a hot mess like Blackboard?
So we did a lot of long meetings with Final Site and show us the back end and answer these questions. And we need to know that it will do this and it won't do that. And Final Site has been in use. Final Site is actually something that was explored by WCCUSD in the past. And it's something that WCCUSD wanted but did not choose because of budgetary reasons. I don't know why now what's being offered is less than our cost for Blackboard, but it is. So So that, you know, is a piece of context there. We have done a lot of work to ask them some tough questions to make sure that this will do what we've seen our community needs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else, Ms. Kitchen, you had a question?
So I'll stay with Blackboard for a second. The 2023 cost is 83,520 plus 20,000 for the setup.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I had that right.
Correct.
And then on some more,
Actually, let me clarify that.
okay,
So it's the 2022-23 cost is what you'll see in the second column here. So it's the 72,000 plus the 14 plus the 20. The 20 is to final site, the 14 and the 72 were to Blackboard, and that 14 was only until September 30th. And then the 2023 costs that you're seeing in the far column, that's for the school year 23-24. So for the 23-24 year, we have the 83,000.
Plus the 20.
okay, but you've got 22-23 final site, one-time setup. So that was in 22-23,
Correct.
and your 23 figure on the right is the 83,520.
Right.
So is that included in that figure, or is it
No.
in addition?
It's in addition.
Okay,
And that's what that 20,000 represents, is the design hours for us to not be stuck in a basic template that wouldn't do everything we need to do.
right, yeah, I understand. I just wanted to make sure if it was included in that figure or not.
It's not, for the figure, the 83,000 would be the annual.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on some more, the current cost is $999.
Right.
You'd like to expand it, but you didn't really give us a cost on how much it would be
Yeah.
if you did expand it.
That's a great question. So we've been pursuing that cost from SMORE. We don't have a quote yet. And so that is something that we are working to get from them.
Okay,
To expand it to every
So our
building?
goal in terms of equitably providing services would be making sure that this is a resource that anyone who wants it has access to. That doesn't mean that that's necessarily what we have to do immediately or what is feasible immediately. We don't want to be spending money on licenses that aren't used. And that's why we only started with 10, and tried to make sure that those were licenses that we could get in use, that folks could really get onboarded to, and that we could feel were a value add. So I don't know that that means we need to go from 10 to 56. That's not necessarily the solution. But long-term, I don't know that it would be right for us to say, this is the district platform for providing these letters, only the first 10 people get to use it. Yeah.
Who's using SMORE right now? Like those
Um,
10 licenses that you were mentioning, I was just curious, like, is it
Yeah, I
schools, is it
can put-
departments?
It's a mix of schools and departments. One of the departments that's using it is OASA, because they were one of the departments that was using MailChimp. And so if we were going to discontinue MailChimp and just use SMORE, they were one of the things we needed to make sure was fully supported. Hercules High School uses SMORE, Lupine uses SMORE, Richmond High uses SMORE, and Dijon uses SMORE. And I'd be happy to pull the rest, so then you'll have to top of my head.
You like it, Jose?
Yeah, communication, failure loves.
Yeah, folks who are using it seem to really like it, so we get great.
What's the difference between SMORE and Parent Square? Because am I getting the same information in Parent Square that I'm getting in SMORE?
So no one's getting information in SMORE, we're building a newsletter in SMORE and then using Parent Square to send it. One word is try to build what you're building in SMORE in Parent Square, you need to know how to code. Folks in the communications department could build something in Parent Square over many hours and code it all out and make sure that you'll get it, and it won't be like a messy thing where a bullet's supposed to be over there and actually it's over here. But for our folks who are working at school sites and working to regularly communicate with families, they can go into SMORE. SMORE also integrates with Canva. So they're literally able to like click on a header in SMORE and come up with something themed for that month and really quickly make it nice for their school, drop in all the information their families need, put in a cute picture of an event that week, and then they basically copy that, go to Parent Square, drop it all in and hit go.
So what I'm seeing in Parent Square may have been created in SMORE.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
so SMORE is where you create it, Parent Square is where you ship it out.
Right, so when you get the district newsletter, it's built in SMORE.
And if SMORE wasn't there, someone would have to know how to build it in Parent Square.
or we'd have to pay someone.
Okay.
To build it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and for MailChimp, there is a little bit more knowledge that you need in order to use it effectively. More is much more approachable and more purposeful to take well. I would say if we really build our employees' capacity over time to be really comfortable on these platforms, it could be cool to move back to MailChimp. Right now, I think if we tried to say MailChimp is our platform, not more, we would have similar results as we do with our website, where we have less than a third of our folks using official district channels and everybody else using whatever they could find that's comfortable for them.
Okay, so group, we need to make a decision, because it is 7:25. We can either dive into one of these contracts or dive into none of them right now and wait and bring it back. And then watch the presentation, right? Or,
What's the total cost for your contract?
So what's a little tricky about that, if you look at these, they're not all funded through communications. So even pulling together all of these did take some time. I'd be happy to try to put together what would feel like a total cost of this, but it's not all funded through funds. Some of it's IT, some of it's LCAP, some of it's like money that starts off in HR and the department that comes through us as it goes to marketing. The total's a little tough to say, we have to define total.
On these papers, what is your total cost? Because it doesn't, I don't think we care right now where the money's coming from, other than how much the lump sum. Mhm.
I'm happy to,
so while Ms. Sanders is adding up our lump sum that we are on this piece of paper in front of us now, what's the pleasure of the committee? Come back? And then put these in buckets, because we literally don't have time to put them in buckets right now.
No, I understand that. I wanted to kind of hear her
The
Yes,
presentation
yes.
she did, okay, so we do want to have,
and then come back for the bucket.
okay, so
If that's.
come
okay.
back from the bucket, Ms. Kitchen, come back for the bucket. Mr. De Leon, come back and
come
talk
back.
about putting the contracts in the buckets,
Yes, come back.
okay,
okay.
we need you to come back.
Yes, the only caution that I would tell you is that this is the smallest day, right?
Mhm.
So I do think that, we might have to talk about, I mean, we did a lot of pre-work today, right? But, once we get to like HR and Xers and businesses,
Yeah,
it's
It's gonna be longer.
It's
so,
already
so
done.
we
No, I
might have to
understood.
do like extended days on those
Okay.
days.
Okay,
So we'll have to like dig deep on schedule.
Okay,
okay, so we'll have to look at, Mr. John, come back so we can put it in buckets, because
Either way.
we're running out of time a little bit. I think one of the things that will help us is when we come to an agreement of what day we can be here and the time and the location, that'll help us with the planning a little bit. Thank you all for this. We're not finished yet. Ms. Sanders is gonna take us out on a high note with the presentation.
mhm,
But we do need to I don't want us to get away without picking a day.
for sure.
So what days do not work? Friday does not work for trustee Smith Folds. What day Wednesday doesn't work for you? Wednesday's out, Friday's out.
Thursday, if it remains around this time. Can work for me.
That's a membership.
What about you?
Thursday's a membership meeting?
Well,
Okay,
yeah, but it's like one in the month,
yeah, it's just once a month, right?
because if it's middle of the month, it'll work, if it's front or the end of the month.
So Thursday, middle of the month works for you.
Don't mess with our chocolate.
Okay, we're not messing with Taco Tuesday. So Thursday, middle of the month, yes, sir.
Maybe on a non-board week.
Yeah,
So
That's
it's
cool.
usually like the third week of the month.
Okay,
But that messes
like
with,
the
Oh,
13th.
is that when the taco?
Tuesday, Tuesday on the middle should be pretty good.
Tuesdays in the middle of the month?
Like the third Tuesday of the month? Or the second Tuesday of the, you need a calendar?
No, no,
Okay.
it's first or end. What's the general consensus?
Yeah, I mean,
Tuesdays,
I'm
good day
I'm
for
good
you?
with
Tuesdays
Tuesdays
are
and
good for me.
Thursdays on non-board weeks. right?
Tuesday, Thursday on a non-board week is good for you. Tuesday, Dr. Hurst, Tuesday, Thursday, non-board week would work for you.
Mhm.
Okay, Ms. Sunday, Tuesdays, Thursdays,
Thursdays preferably. 'cause-
preferably
yeah,
Thursday.
Yeah.
We can stay with Thursday.
Yeah.
We'll work around Thursday.
Sorry, if I may make a suggestion, just looking at April. The only week without a board meeting is the week of the 17th.
Yeah.
So actually that week, only the 18th would work because we have the
Okay.
20th is open house. Which I know would actually affect some of you, including Karen,
Oh, yeah.
right? So, I think that either the 17th or the 18th of April would be really the only days that.
The eighteenth works.
the 18th.
And that's what day of the week?
I have an
Tuesday.
invitation. Myself and Miss Sanders, we're supposed to be at a Richmond Art Show, student art show
Oh, I did see that.
Okay.
On the 18th?
on the 18th.
Okay, and
Mhm.
what about the 17th?
I'll make it work.
17th.
You'll make it work? What day of the week is that?
Monday.
A Monday.
Monday.
Okay, well, not supposed to do on Mondays, but okay. Mondays would work. So Monday, the 17th, and then next week or next time we'll come back with another date. So let's be flexible enough with each other that we go month to month. Is this time okay? 5:30 to 7:30? Give us a little bit of a 7:30 leeway. It may be 7:45, 8
Yeah,
o'clock,
that's
but
fine.
okay, so is this location okay?
Mhm.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
So we're good.
Commissioner commutes, do we prefer maybe
No, no,
at
that-
4 o'clock?
No, that's whatever works.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, I'm fine.
You okay?
Don't
with
worry
that?
about that.
Ms.
So-
Kitchen?
When we come back in April, are we going to redo communications or are we
So the-
moving on to technology?
So when we come back in April, we're gonna put these contracts in one of those buckets.
Okay.
So we're gonna look at these 8, 10 contracts that we have here. Any questions that we have for Ms. Sanders, we're gonna give them to her beforehand,
Okay.
right? Any questions that we've been sitting
Mhm,
and
'cause I
thinking
need to
about,
think about
like
this.
what's the total budget that you have or whatever questions that we have. And when we come in, we're gonna dedicate 30 minutes, give or take,
That's-
to dropping these in buckets.
Okay,
And then we move on to IT.
Okay.
perfect. So there will be no caucus amongst us. Everything is
So there's gonna be a
With open-
conversation with us, right, about where do we
Separate.
put it?
That's what I mean, like
Yes.
prior to 5:30, you thinking, or all within that?
Within
Okay.
that
Just wanna
30
make
All
sure.
in and-
Yeah.
Okay,
Within that 30 minutes, we're gonna go
Okay.
something like,
okay.
let's do one that we've already said is out. We're gonna do one that says like MailChimp, and everybody's like, what do you think about MailChimp? And you're like,
Okay.
"Oh, I don't need MailChimp, or I don't think we need to do that. Well, you think you need it? And everybody says what they say, and then if we all come to consensus, MailChimp is out.
Okay, perfect.
And then we'll do that for every one of the contracts. Yes, sir.
A question, it's kind of what on the track Jose was on, which is, ultimately, it doesn't really matter like where the money is coming from. We're kind of looking at these like buckets and groups,
Mhm.
right? Like this is who presented today, but it might be helpful for us to think about sort of a goal. We have the goal of 24 million, but like by percentage, maybe like what, because I'm seeing all this and I'm hearing really great things from each of these. And of course, you don't want to probably lose anything that you don't, if you want to lose, right? But we're gonna have to cut things. And so it might be helpful to maybe give a little direction. Cause I'm like, that sounds good and that sounds good, you know, and so.
So you mean like we're gonna cut 15% from communication, something like that? I'm-
Okay.
It's like overall 15%,
Okay.
it would help me
Yeah.
personally, like, yeah, go in and be like, I'm trying to cut blank.
Okay, so is that something that we come together as a group to decide how much we're gonna cut out, what percentage we're gonna cut out? Or is that something that you bring back to us and say, how was that? How do y'all do that?
Maybe a suggestion would be, one of the things that we were talking during the break, Clerk Smith Wilson and I, is that we're gonna request kind of like a breakdown of the total cost of every department in the 4 and the 5,000s. So that we see, because to be honest, Ed Services is gonna have 100 times the amount of money that is communications, right? Now,
500?
yeah. So, expecting to cut 15-20% of communications is gonna be a much bigger hit than
Cutting something out
Ed
of Ed
Services,
Services.
right? So maybe we look at, yes, sorry,
Is there a spreadsheet with everything?
that's what we're gonna request.
Okay, that,
Yeah.
I mean, that would be easier.
Dr. McIntyre and I have also this.
You'll have it first thing in the morning. It's already prepared.
With
Okay,
a
so-
total
So
for
the
each
community-
department?
It has it by function and by site. Sites include departments.
Okay, so send that to the entire committee. That would be great for us to have. I did, and Ms. Sanders, everybody hold on a couple of minutes because we're gonna make sure we get Ms. Sanders in, but I need to go over a couple of things that came from the community. The community said some suggestions, show on the agenda union committee members. They want to know who's here, right? Show on the agenda that the public can speak at each agenda item. I don't think we're doing it that way. We're doing public comment in the very beginning.
Mhm.
Unless it's the purview of the committee that you want to do it at the end too, but I think doing it at the beginning will help. Another suggestion was include the agenda packet copies of the contracts to be reviewed. We did say that we wanted that to be on there, to put the contracts on there. And then. Okay, so that's just him telling me it was done during superintendent W time, got that. And then we had other suggestions. This one is from a board member. Dr. Hirsch, you're on this email. This is very long. So it's a long email, so we're gonna look at these suggestions and kind of bring them back to everybody. I'm gonna kind of pass the email down so you guys can look at it and tell me what suggestions you want to kind of implement. And then I will take the time to read this one at another meeting because it's lengthy. Okay, Ms. Sanders, you're up, and it is 7:35. People gonna get out of here in 5 minutes.
Absolutely, and to quickly answer Mr. DeLeon's question, both Dr. McIntyre and I just sat here with calculators. What we've got is that, what's on these sheets and then including the Facebook ads so far this year, but not including Lamar because we haven't settled that yet. What we have for this year is 225,334, and what Dr. McIntyre calculated out for next year minus Facebook, because that's an unknown, minus Lamar, that's also an unknown. Would be 213,169. So we are seeing a year-over-year decrease. And that is a trend. Again, I have really worked to make it a people first budget that does eliminate any possible redundancies. So we had a reduction from last year to this year, and we're looking at a reduction from this year to next year. Happy to provide the full details of that, but that's the quick answer right now. The quick case study that we've got, one of the things that as a team we wanted to make clear is that when we look at the tools that were in the center of that Venn diagram that really feel like our core suite of tools for us, but eliminating one of those things, we feel like voting off the front left wheel of our car. We might say something, but we wouldn't be able to go anywhere. And so we wanted to give an example of how we use it. We learn from our analytics. So what we've been learning from Hootsuite and from Meltwater is that our community really wants to see people-driven stories of triumph, excellence, and celebration. Those are the ones that get really high levels of engagement across all of our platforms. So when we were designing our job fair advertisements and really trying to do better work for marketing our hiring efforts, we did create graphics that integrated pictures of our employees in community with others. And we used Facebook ads and Hootsuite and Canva to create those ads, to produce the social posts and to really target them and get them out there. When we looked at our metrics on Hootsuite and Facebook ads, we saw that what we learned from Hootsuite and Meltwater had actually proven useful, and we had gotten really high numbers of clicks. So we got over 130 clicks just in the early stages of that campaign. But the problem was when we looked at what our goal metrics were for that campaign, we really wanted to get RSVPs to the job fair. That's the whole point, is to get people hired. We only had 21 folks RSVPing from that 130 clicks. And when we looked at the survey data from the RSVP form about how they found out about the job fair, only 7 of those folks said they found out from our social ads. So we knew that at some point we had 130 interested people in coming and working in WCCUSD, and we only converted that into 7 folks actually RSVPing. So that's where we had to figure out what went wrong. And what we did was we tracked the user journey from the social ad to the RSVP form and figured out where and how do people have to navigate to get there. And what we discovered was an issue with how our HR landing page was set up. And that the actual ability to RSVP and see the job fair content was really varied based on the page structure. So we restructured the page and we lifted that content up. We're going to review those metrics again tomorrow, but that actually brings to light a core issue with how our website is set up. And again, the issues with Blackboard not necessarily being a mobile first platform. Every time we're trying to lift up content, we're restructuring a page. You'll often hear in board meetings, people will say, can we put that on the home page of the website? Every time we use a tactic like that to uplift content, we're actually creating more chaotic user journeys over time. Because you can think about it like walking into a Safeway where what's in each aisle changes every week. You won't be able to get your groceries quickly. And sometimes you might give up and go to another store. So that's what's happening for folks on our website, and that's part of why we need to make sure that we are using a core infrastructure for our tools that's more effective and responsive for our community. And this is a little bit about how all of these tools integrate to help us understand what's going on for our folks and having more effective communications. Thanks for letting me know that.
Oh,
Thank
that was
you.
great.
Thanks.
Okay. Everybody in public, thank you so very much. We appreciate you coming. This is recorded, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, feel free to go back and watch it again. We will see everyone on April 17th. We will see you all back here on April 17th. Thank you so very much. And we will get that information out to committee members as early as tomorrow morning. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Thank all of those of you who joined us. We appreciate it. Any final words? 30 seconds. Anybody got anything to say? Great. All right, we are leaving. Thank you very much. Enjoy your, is it Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yes,
Wednesday.
enjoy your Wednesday.
evening.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Okay, wait a second. So this cool camera here, is that thing right there?
The owl.
Yes.
Everybody, please take stuff with